Greetings. We are here live in Dallas. And it's a huge day for us as a show, for me on a personal level, for the team of people that have, beginning with the very first storyboards sessions that we did in Burbank, me, Chris Jones, Gary Solomon, Chuck Conselman, the team at Believe Entertainment, and this movie was in its nascent stages, and it has been a slog. It has been a battle. It has been a test of endurance. It has been watching spiritual warfare play out in front of your very eyes on both ends for going on almost 3 years. We started storyboarding this movie in June of 2020, and now here we are on April 4th, 2023, on the day of the red carpet premiere for Nefarious. So we're holding it here in Dallas so that we can share the event with our colleagues here at the Blaze, who have been hugely supportive of the movie, and also the people in the theater industry that have been hugely supportive in helping us get to the opportunity to release this nationwide on theaters. And so that's why we're doing the red carpet premiere. We're expecting over 400 tonight, I was just told. Over 400 are coming to this event tonight. Incredible. My buddy Chip Roy coming, Congressman from Texas, Senator Ted Cruz coming tonight, and some other VIPs as well. So it's just an incredible experience. We're going to do our best the next couple of days to share this with you. I'm here in Dallas. Todd and Aaron are back in Des Moines. They're going to get their own red carpet premiere next week. We are doing another one of these just for all of the Iowa people that helped us get to where we are. And there'll be a few hundred for that event too, it looks like. You're going to get a chance later in the show. I'm going to sit down here live inside Pat Gray's studio. Thank you for letting us borrow it, Pat. I'm going to sit down live with Sean Patrick Flanery and Jordan Belfi, the two stars of Nefarious, the two guys that take this movie to the next level. And we're going to talk to them together. And I don't know that they have actually spoken or been in the same room together since we've filmed the movie. We finished filming at least their part of the film together in December of 2021. So I don't know that they've been in the same room together for a conversation since then. So we will talk to the two of them later in the program today. But and then tomorrow we'll have much more on the premiere as well. The day after the premiere, we'll have Billy Hallowell here with us from CBN. The directors and writers, Carrie and Chuck, will be with us tomorrow as well. But it's a big day, gentlemen. I'm trying to relax and enjoy it. There's still a lot of stuff that we need to comment happening in the world today. And this has been such a battle to get to this point, and the battle is still ongoing. We've already heard from people already that pre-sales for the movie are going well. You guys are doing a great job out there. Get your tickets now. The next 72 hours, it's the final grind to determine how many screens we're going to be on when we open on April the 14th. So remember the theater there in Avondale, Arizona, that we told you about yesterday, just outside of Phoenix, the Regal Cinemas in the Carolinas. But if you go to NefariousTickets.com, that's NefariousTickets.com, it'll show you right now where the closest theater to you is, because those pre-sales are going to go a long way in determining how many screens we are able to launch with on April the 14th. So thank you to all of you that have already gone to war for the movie. I mean, my inbox is just overloaded with more notes than I can respond to. I mean, it's incredibly humbling. It's just heartfelt, and I can't thank you all enough. You can get your tickets at NefariousTickets.com. That's NefariousTickets.com. Before we move on with the rest of the normal show stuff, gentlemen, you have any thoughts back there in Des Moines?
Yeah, I'm keeping it simple, and I've already told you this privately, but I'm just so happy for you. Not just the movie arc that you just laid out, your career arc, your personal arc. I'm reminded of the wise words of Samwise Gamgee in reflecting upon all this. How did you get here on all those fronts? Because there's good in this world, and it's worth fighting for. And in that respect, you have been a very good and faithful servant. And I'm a fellowship of sorts is gathering there in Dallas because they've been a part of this too, and it's a lesson for moving forward, not in terms of just what we learn, America learns after sitting in on this movie, but on reflecting on all that is going on in this culture. If you wake up in the morning, go to bed at night with those words from Samwise, which are really the words of the Lord, you can't go wrong. So, Steve, well done, brother.
Would echo that as well. And
Very kind, man. Thank you.
I think it's a testimony to you as a man and the work and grace of the Holy Spirit that this is an accomplishment that 0.001% of people can ever say that they did, that they brought a movie to market for wide release. And it's a testament to you as a man, and more importantly, the grace of the God that we serve, that you took your entire family with you. Not only that you took your family with you, I dare say, they want to come. How many people in the position of executive producer of a movie sold their souls to do whatever, to make whatever movies? They maybe made some incredible movies, but we know what Hollywood is like. And the fact that you're in this position right now, the story, as Todd just alluded to, of your arc, and you get to enjoy this with your family tonight amongst all the other VIPs, an incredible testimony.
That's very kind, both of you. Very appreciative. And yeah, I think we brought a party of 10, counting me. I mean, I've got my mom and her husband are here. I even brought the mother-in-law. No, I'm just kidding. She's a great gal. I brought Amy's mom. We brought the kids. Anastasia and her husband, Stephen, are here. And so this is, I think, finally the moment now where maybe I'm going to get to kind of relax and enjoy what we've accomplished the last few years and endured, and how faithful God has been to get us here. Because you know me, tomorrow I'm going to get up and say, all right, now, what's opening weekend look like? That's just how I'm wired. All right. So today I'm going to try to chill out, relax, and enjoy it as best I can. And again, if you want to get your tickets now for pre-sales, nefariousTickets.com. And with that, coming up on the show today, I mentioned Jordan Belfi, Sean Patrick Flanery will join us next hour on the show. We will, at the bottom of this hour, we will still play Fake News or Not. But let us begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Pain at the Pump. Saudi Arabia announced over the weekend it'll cut oil production by 500,000 barrels per day from May until the end of this year, a move that will raise prices at the pump worldwide. The Saudi Energy Ministry said the cuts would be made in coordination with some OPEC and non-OPEC members without naming them. The cuts are in addition to a reduction announced last October. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was on CBS, where he dismissed the ongoing invasion at the southern border.
What the American people see is a border that looks to be chaotic, that looks to be porous.
Well, the number of people that are arriving at our border is at an extraordinary height. There's no question about that. But that is not unique to the southern border of the United States.
Why won't you say the word crisis?
You know what? Because I have tremendous faith in the people of the Department of Homeland Security. And a crisis speaks to me of a withdrawal from our mission.
Last night, police in Tallahassee, Florida, arrested a cadre of pro-baby killing activists for trespassing on city ground while demonstrating. Among those arrested was former Florida gubernatorial candidate Nikki Fried. Teachers Union Grand Poobah Randy Weingarten tweeted about the event saying, quote, "Now DeSantis is arresting his opponents." Yeah, as I said, that's Tallahassee police, but you do you, Randy. The demonstration came after Florida's state Senate passed a 6-week baby killing ban, which now heads to the House. The Nashville Police Department still has not released the manifesto of the transgender terrorist who murdered 6 Christians last week. They did come out with a press release yesterday providing more insight into the murderer's intentions. Quote, "In the collective writings by Hale found in her vehicle in the school parking lot and others later found in the bedroom of her home, she documented in journals her planning over a period of months to commit mass murder at the Covenant School." The statement goes on to say, "The investigation shows that Hale fired a total of 152 rounds from the time she shot her way into the school until she was killed by police. New Zealand's new Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, is the latest victim of the most dastardly question in the world. Watch this.
How do you and how does this government define a woman?
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me. Biology, sex, gender. People define themselves. People define their own genders.
The governing body for women's swimming in the UK announced recently women in that country will no longer have to worry about swimming against men. Swim England announced the policy goes into effect September 1st and will apply to competitions under Swim England's authority, including those by member regions and clubs as well. Swim England's decision to ban dudes from competing against women comes after World Athletics' ban on dudes competing against women in track and field just a few weeks ago. According to data from the UK government, highlighted by researcher and pathologist Dr. Claire Craig, total deaths in the UK were higher in March 2023 than the autumn of 2020. What's the benign, innocent explanation for that? And finally, as it turns out, Donald Trump loves him some Paul Ryan.
I think Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney will save Medicare. I know they will.
I like Paul Ryan very much.
I have a lot of respect for Paul Ryan.
I have great respect for Paul Ryan.
And I have a lot of respect for Paul Ryan.
I support and endorse our Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan, who is a very good person.
Paul Ryan's a good guy, actually. Paul Ryan's, he's a good guy.
Speaker Paul Ryan, I've really come to I've come to appreciate him.
I have a lot of respect for Paul Ryan, and I like him very much.
I'll tell you, he has been terrific. He's a good man, and he's a good guy. He's like a fine wine. No, he's a classy guy.
Frankly, I like Paul Ryan very much.
Every day goes by, I get to appreciate his genius more and more.
And I want to thank Speaker Paul Ryan for being here. He's been tremendous.
A great speaker, Paul Ryan, and he is a great speaker. He's a great guy, and we have some amazing things in store. And he's going to lead the way, so thank you. Paul Ryan and Mitch, it was a little team. We just got together and we would work very hard, didn't we, huh? A wonderful man who I've gotten to know very well. We're going to win so much. You're going to go to Paul Ryan. You're going to go, Mr. Speaker, please, please. We can't stand winning this much. We can't take it.
That's a montage posted by Congressman Thomas Massie yesterday, and that's what happened while we were away. I think my favorite clips in that montage are Trump supporters rightly booing the name of Paul Ryan while Trump himself tries to sell him to his own base. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Birch Gold. You know, inflation has consequences as the Fed raises interest rates to combat out-of-control government spending. Long-term bonds have diminished value, crippling banks, depositors holding their breath, investors bailing on bank stocks. Diversification has never been more important, and the recent surge in gold prices directly tied to this extreme market volatility right now. And that's why gold has historically been a great hedge against government debasement schemes like what we're seeing right now, inflation, etc. All right, so if you want to get started and diversify into gold with Birch Gold Group, Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. Here's what you need to do. Text Steve to 989898. 989898. Text Steve to 989898 to get a free info kit on gold. Again, text Steve to 989898 today.
Hey,
We're going to
Steve.
discuss more in depth. Yes, Todd, go ahead.
Hey, Steve, what's more emasculating? Trump supporting Paul Ryan that many times, or the Premier of New Zealand not knowing what a woman is? Go.
Well, we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. In the overtime today, we are going to be discussing the excess death numbers out of the UK, where deaths in March, coming out of a seasonal surge, by the way, are higher than deaths in the fall of 2020 going into a seasonal surge. And what is the benign, innocent explanation for that? We'll get into that today in the overtime. For Blaze TV subscribers, if you're one of those, be patient. We will record it right after today's show. You'll be able to watch it later today at blazetv.com/Deace. If you're not yet a Blaze TV subscriber, go to blazetv.com/Deace and become one for just $10 a month right now. blazetv.com/Deace. I wasn't going to start there, but since you interjected, who had on their end of Western Civ bingo card the question, what's a woman, actually being the epitaph of whatever is left? The defining question that no one can answer, that would collapse whatever scintilla of Western civilization remains. Who would have possibly... I mean, we have been ahead of the curve on this show on a few things the last few years. I'd have never guessed in a million years, guys. Asking elected officials, what's a woman, would be the new who shot Kennedy. All right? Think about it. The previous generation, I mean, who shot JFK? Who was, did James Earl Ray act alone in shooting MLK? Here's the question for our era. What's a woman? And John Fetterman's a senator. I mean, if that doesn't, and we say this all the time, and I'm going to bring up again another microcosm here in a minute, so I'll say it twice in just this segment alone, but I mean, if that is not a microcosm of the complete epistemological collapse in the West, guys, I don't know what is. That has become the defining gotcha question of the era. What is a woman?
And it's not just the question itself. It's the fact that it makes people absolutely wet their pants instantaneously. I mean, you could hear him. He was like, oh, you caught me off guard. More awkward silence. Yeah. Let me repeat some buzzwords related to this topic. Biology, gender. These are all. I mean, he was literally. You could hear the dripping down his pants in the background.
Todd, consider that this era has seen more of every aspect of the female anatomy than any era of human history ever. And it still cannot answer the question, Todd, what is a woman? What does that tell you?
It tells me that all those compliments I gave you before about there's good in this world and it's worth fighting for, we have men across this entire Western civilization who believe the very opposite. That's what it tells me.
Something else I want us to get to here really quick before we get to the other matter I want to talk about that isn't an Aaron's montage, and that's what's going on in New York City as we speak. Todd, I want to go back to you because this is more in your wheelhouse with your daughter, and obviously she's a world-class athlete. How do we explain this sudden burst of sanity here? So we're going to ban guys from international track competitions. The UK now is banning guys from swimming competitions. What do you attest this sudden burst of sanity in some of these athletic endeavors?
I do think that our obvious demand that women at some point need to be the ones who just say no. I don't think it's quite as public as we would like it in terms of the courage of 22-year-old Riley Gaines. But I think women's sports, in terms of their formal organizations, are starting to simply say, no, this isn't happening. I can't imagine that isn't at least one of the largest and most fundamental factors to all this.
In other words, we are doing something we have not typically done well. We're attacking the premise of this, and it is causing this issue to have when in an area where it has to compete. Right? Right now, it doesn't feel like it has to compete for Bud Light. Bud Light thinks you're going to buy their beer no matter, who the spokesman is and what they say to you. Now, maybe you'll change that calculus. But in these other areas where it does have to compete in the arena of ideas because the people that are being harmed by this are speaking directly at it and to it.
Yes.
that's where we're seeing the house of cards collapse. In other words, where the pressure is applied.
The other largest factor, and if you want to follow my Twitter feed, I offered you a masterclass on confronting this insane intellectual dishonesty about things here in Iowa, where Caitlin Clark, one of the greatest college female basketball players of all time, pros, LeBron James, the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, all talking about her all year long. Have you seen her game? Have you seen her game? You can't shed that light, that obviously, on women's sports and elevate it, and then have stories like with women's soccer, a 15-year-old boys soccer, club soccer team from down, I believe, in where you are now, Dallas, defeating the greatest team in the world. Caitlin Clark, God bless her, she's amazing. If she happened to be wide open all the time on a men's basketball team, she could drain those shots. The thing is, she's not big enough, strong enough, or fast enough to get open. She wouldn't start on men's D1 basketball teams. That's not a slight against her. It's not my daughter who goes to Arkansas. She says, and this happens in every D1 program, not just soccer, but all sports. Guys who decided not to go to college, they were just good on their high school basketball team. They play against them. And my daughter says, I don't play anybody that's as fast as strong in D1 women's soccer. And they made it to the Elite Eight, as I do the boys and come and help us practice. And those boys need to be told, you can't play at 100% because we don't want to injure our girls. That's reality. And it in no way diminishes my daughter or Caitlin Clark. And that's the other very large factor in all this. It's just so damn obvious that it's breaking through.
I think also on this issue, unlike the issue of homosexuality of 10, 15 years ago, there is no spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. There is none of that. There's none of that on a rhetorical level at all, because you're being forced by the very presence and being forced by the very premise that you must lie, or else you are a bigot. There is no room to hide on this issue whatsoever. Rosaria Butterfield, you remember her. She is a former lefty tenured professor. She is a former lesbian who came to faith in Christ. She just posted on her blog the last couple of days. She is repenting for what she calls the sin of continuing to use trans pronouns. That's indicative of this. There is nowhere to hide on this issue whatsoever. And so people, whether it's for the right motivations or not, there's just no rhetorical room to hide. There's no spoonful of sugar to help the medicine of this mental illness go down the pipe.
So the old talking point of how does my gay marriage impact your marriage had some truth. I mean, after all, if you were serious, if you were being honest that you really didn't want to impose your will on society-wide and kept to yourself, it largely wouldn't have an impact on me. It's just people like me doubted that you were serious when you said that was really just a disarming canard. But if you were serious about it, it was correct, which is why, because there was some ring of truth that it allowed the camel's nose to get under the tent. Because, if you really do leave me alone, I leave you alone, we're all good. It's just a matter of you were always going to make me care. We would always be made to care. But that statement in and of itself wasn't false. Here, the very presence of everything about this is false.
Yes.
There is no buffer language. There is no retreat language. There is no accommodation language. It is mental illness, demonic insanity in your face. And you accept it whole cloth, mainline it into your ideological, philosophical, moral veins, or you don't. That's it. You're not a little bit pregnant. I don't have a little bit of fentanyl in my body. I didn't snort a little bit of cocaine. I didn't smoke a little crack. I either did or I did not. This presents a very either or scenario where there is no gray area at all. That's what I hear you saying.
The lie is the point.
Yeah. No, that's exactly correct. And going back to kind of something that I said on Friday's show regarding this entire issue, I didn't see AR-15 superimposed over images of the rainbow flag. I do now for the transgender flag. I do now because there is no room whatsoever. And so people are being forced just kind of by gut instinct, by visceral reaction. People are being forced to pick sides. And I think the forces of hell that are driving this issue, I think the forces of hell see that. And so I think that's why you're seeing the imagery, the militant imagery of the transgender mob more ubiquitous now than you ever did with the rainbow mob.
So a couple of lessons that teaches us just on a broader scale is, number one, when arguments are about absolutes, we win. That's when we're the home team. We're the home team. And if you're gonna take the arena of ideas, the ideological battlefield, any good general is going to frame a battlefield into what gives his armies the most likelihood chance of success. When we are in areas of absolute, where things are cut and dry, is this true or is it false? That is framing the ideological battlefield in our favor. And that's why we don't want to run from truth. That's why we don't want to embrace untruth among ourselves. That's why we do fake news or not on this show. We even test the spirits of our own side and the things we say and what people wearing our jersey that we personally like are saying. Are these things true? Because whenever a lie takes root, we're actually scoring own goals here. There's a soccer term I actually know, Todd. We're scoring own goals here. We're just turning right around and kicking the ball past our own goalie into the net for the enemy. When we are in cut and dried absolute space, that is where we have the best chance to win. That's number one. But here's number two, though. I think it also tells you that hell believes it has made so much progress, pardon the pun, it has made so much progress in the West that it doesn't have to come up with, as Aaron put it, the spoons full of sugar to help the medicine go down anymore. That now it can just jump right out of the shadows in a red unitard and a pitchfork and sell itself as is. No packaging, no branding, no deception. Out in the open, we're buying. We're buying out in the open. Because it's not like we lured them into a debate of absolutes. Like, it's not like we out-tricked them or outsmarted them. The other side, the enemy, just walked right into that space boldly and said, "Hey, I think I can beat you now here on your field. I think I can win the road game. I'll just propose this out front and watch your elites embrace it whole cloth." So I think there is a cautionary tale there, as well as a lesson for us moving forward about what are the conditions that would allow us to win some of these battles. When there's clarity and not confusion, when the options here are cut and dried, something is true, something is not. And when we are willing to not give up the premise of our argument. Right? Riley Gaines didn't go around the country saying, "I was totally fine competing against Leah Thomas, provided he didn't come into the locker room and flash his junk at me, and I got to at least have the sanctity of a female security in the locker room." She didn't do that. That was part of her overall argument, but it undergirded the premise, which was his presence, whether in the locker room or on the field of play, is anathema to reality. Everything about it is anathema to reality. They didn't find some place downwind that they thought was the simpler case to make. So let's park it there, give up the premise of our argument, like we've done on tons of issues on the right over the years. They went after the premise of the presence of this dude named Leah Thomas now from the jump. And I think those are key lessons moving forward. You guys have any quick thoughts on either one of those?
Yeah, just to kind of put a finer point and make kind of a similar analogy. When the argument involves absolutes, we are at least on a playing field in a competition with boundaries, which we can win. We still have to go out there and win, but we can win. There are boundaries. There are out of bounds markers. When we are having an argument based in gray areas, the example that you made, what happens in my bedroom, how does that affect you? We should respect pronouns because that's the polite thing to do. When we make arguments in gray areas, it then becomes Calvin ball. There are no out-of-bounds markers. The rules are made up as we go along. It is absolute chaos. Truth cannot win in that type of environment.
Mm-hmm. Well said. All right, when we come back, we are going to get to what is transpiring right now in Manhattan. Trump is expected to appear this afternoon in court to be arraigned, indicted, some reports up to 34 felonies. I don't know what the truth of that is. We'll find out today, but we'll play fake news or not with the story nevertheless. The positive reviews for Eden Pure's Thunderstorm air purifiers continue to roll into the inbox. Heard so many good compliments from Eden about Eden Pure since they came on board last year. And you can get their Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. Put one in your garage, upstairs, downstairs, or upstairs, downstairs, your finished basement, whatever applies to where you live. All 3 units for under $200. All 3 units for under $200 plus free shipping, And did I mention these are filterless? You'll never be paying out of pocket to replace the filters or spending time doing that yourself ever again. All 3 units for under $200. That's a lot less than their competitors, who probably aren't as good anyway. And find out why we've gotten so many rave reviews about this product that doesn't just freshen air, it kills the nasty stuff that's in your air. EdenPureDeals.com is where you want to go. Use the discount code Steve to get the discount on the 3-pack and the free shipping. Discount code Steve at EdenPureDeals.com. All right, let's get to fake news or not. And we're gonna devote fake news or not entirely to the emerging story right now in New York City, awaiting the former president's arrival at the courthouse, where he will be arraigned and formally charged. I don't know what's true. We're going to find out soon enough here. Will there be? I didn't even consider the idea that a judge could put a gag order on Trump as a presidential candidate and what that does to you as a candidate. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I saw Tim Pool bring that up last night. It was blew my mind. I'm like, wow, I didn't even consider that. There are reports out there as many as 34 felonies, which seems a tad egregious, could be charged here. I think we're going to wait here and see what's actually in the legal filings when they come out later this afternoon. But a lot of tropes are being presented right now about this story. Now, we're also told there will not be, and we had commiserated yesterday. I mean, how much is that mugshot T-shirt going to be worth? There will not be a mugshot, now we're being told. There will not be. So, okay. That seems like the lost marketing opportunity of a lifetime for both sides, actually. Hell, I'd probably answer one of the Trump, I'm getting, like many of you, 14 Trump texts right now. I'd probably buy one of those puppies myself, actually. But apparently we're not going to be blessed with that. So I guess we can't even grift right now. But let's address some of the tropes that are out there. And I want you guys to address them about what you two each think, Todd and Aaron, is fake news or not. Okay? You guys ready to go?
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the very first big one that we are hearing a ton right now. The indictment has clinched a landslide election victory for Trump in 2024.
Come on.
Fake news.
No. Fake. Very fake. Utterly fake. Couldn't be more fake.
Why?
Can I take this one first, Todd?
Of course.
2 impeachments didn't do it. Brett Kavanaugh as a marauding rapist didn't do it. Russian collusion hoax didn't do it. Let's just give him the most benefit of the doubt. Being railroaded on COVID didn't do it. You really think that that's going to change people's minds? No.
There was no red wave without him on the ticket. Do the math.
I hate to say this. I think both of you and the reasons you gave are exactly correct. I was reading a poll today on the drive over here to the Blaze. Guys, 60% of independents in this poll. I only looked at the independent crosstabs. Didn't look at anything else because I think everybody knows. If you're a Democrat, you think that finally, Orange Man bad being brought to justice. If you're, a Republican, they're trying to stop Cheeto Jesus from saving. I just wanted to look at people who are at least claiming to be persuadable. Who knows if they're telling the truth or not? Who knows who's telling the truth about anything nowadays?
Steve,
60% of independents. Go ahead, Todd.
You mentioned just yesterday, I think, John Adams defending the British Redcoats following the Boston Massacre. Like that does not. We have the opposite, and in spades and on both sides these days. We have all kinds of people, no matter how innocent our political enemies might be. There's a lot of people that would not care and would absolutely not defend him if they were wrongly incarcerated. We don't care.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Alan Dershowitz is only doing this routine because he visited Epstein Island, in my opinion. I don't think that guy has any character at all. I wouldn't want him as an ally. I think this is just an attempt to ingratiate himself, to insulate himself from allegations and all kinds of other things. And so that's why he keeps getting trotted out as like the lone person of the left with legal honesty, because I think he has a vulnerability and therefore has to feign honesty. The rest of them aren't going to show any honesty like John Adams whatsoever, Aaron.
Quickly, would we all agree on some level that in a sane world, that proposition should be correct, even given Trump's numerous peccadillos?
Absolutely, it should be. Absolutely, it should be. This is so freaking obvious. 34 felonies? Okay, let's say he paid off. Let's say he had sex with Stormy Daniels and paid her hush money and didn't report it on his campaign disclosure as an in-kind contribution. Remember when I'm the one that told you at the time that that's against the law and other people in my industry said, no, it's not? Well, now here we are. I told you, it's against the law. All right, it is against the law. Okay, but that's not 34 felonies for that. Come on, man. All right, that's beyond freaking egregious and ridiculous. Okay, if that's what we see when the arraignment is filed and the charges are formally filed later today. But to go back to this question, Trump wasn't on the ballot last year. So there was no excuse of Orange Man bad and I want the mean tweets to go away. We had been through hell as a country these last few years. And we come out of losing 10,000 small and family businesses to lockdowns, record inflation. What was the number? Something like a 180% increase in mortgage rate or mortgage payments per month, or some crazy number, right? I mean, everything that we've been through. And on top of that, now they're going to pedo groom our kids in public. I wear the red shirt like Tiger Woods. Man, I show up here in Dallas. It's the last time I was here. It was election night. I'm wearing the red shirt like Tiger Woods. I'm here for the win. I got the Tobo corn. I'm just going to sit back and watch the blue wall crumble on election night. Remember those? Remember that? Remember that? Remember that, guys? I was so confident. Yeah, not so much. So I just have a hard time believing that the same people who watched Brett Kavanaugh get railroaded and then gave Democrats 40 House seats in 2018, the same people that got completely railroaded for the last few years and then turned around and voted for nearly every incumbent imaginable last November and could not be persuaded to say, wow, can we at least get rid of the people teabagging our kids in the library? If we can stop that, maybe we'll work on everything else. That just seems kind of an obvious one. Let's get rid of that. Suddenly, that person, all those things, they weren't moved, but that person's like, damn it, here's this billionaire I couldn't stand. All right, who cares if he paid off a porn star? This is just such an injustice. I don't believe that person exists. If they do, they don't exist in mass quantity. I just don't believe there's a lot of people out there that care about Donald Trump's travails more than they care about their own children's well-being in a public setting like a school or a library. I just don't. And I know that's not good for business to tell you. It is good for business to, toss this around to our boomer audiences and BS one another and knee slap each other, only to then get shocked and stunned on election night yet again. I just don't think that's the reality in which we live. That's another reality. Next question. The indictment has clinched the GOP nomination for Donald Trump in 2024.
Fake news, not as fake as the previous statement, but it's still fake news. I mean, the factoids that you shared on the show yesterday seem to indicate that that is not the case. I think even if I had not seen that or heard that, I would have still said this is still fake news. I think there are a number of people on the right, in a pretty large number, who either could be talked into or are outright ready to move on from Trump.
Speaking of that last election, Ron DeSantis won by 20. So fake news. He's real. If he was not in this race, it'd be a different answer. But he is.
See, I think there's a fundamental problem with this question, whether Ron DeSantis, by the way, did you guys see what his week was? In the last week, constitutional carry, 6-week abortion ban, punched Disney in the balls again, And there was another thing all that got done, and these were done legislatively, by the way, by statute, right? So it's not just, the next time the Floridians decide, that's right, can just, get the next Andrew Gillum in there and erase all of his work in 30 minutes. Not going to be that easy. But there's another issue here. And when Tim Pool posted about the gag order and what that could do to limit Trump as a candidate, it got me thinking about things I had not considered. You have these multiple indictments in these other areas as well. I mean, I think, like I saw Trump's attorney last night talking, or one of his attorneys last night saying, they won't do a gag order. It'll incense people. I don't think they care about that. In fact, I think they want to incense people. I think they're going to stoke as many January 6th as they possibly can. Okay. The social compact is fundamentally broken here. I think you need to consider that there are going to be questions that we should not be considering. You need to consider, will Donald Trump be permitted to enter enough states necessary to win the delegates to win the nomination, regardless of whether maybe Ron DeSantis decides not to run with everything going on. I don't know. I don't know Ron DeSantis. I don't have like a beeline into their organization at that level. I don't know. So let's pretend Ron DeSantis isn't even in this race or going to be in this race. I mean, what if there are so many states that there's an injunction against him traveling to because he's under so many different criminal or civil proceedings that he can't win enough delegates to win the nomination. You guys see what I'm talking about? I think there are so many things that are on the table right now that maybe we haven't even, frankly, considered. And I had not even considered until I saw the whole gag order thing from Tim Pool last night.
No, I agree with that. Being too certain about the lay of the land tomorrow on almost any issue. Again, we don't know what a man or a woman is, so of course.
Yeah, what Todd said.
All right, let's continue on. Number 3. This won't be the only indictment or series of indictments that Trump faces.
True news. It should be fake news, but because Donald Trump decided to self-extradite and not take Ron DeSantis up on the promise to shield him from extradition, it is now indictment season.
True news, of course, unless and until there are consequences. Now, right now, they're talking a big game in the social media world about, no, this is boomerang back, and actually the guy who's going to end up in jail is Bragg. Show me the money. Until then, of course there's going to be more indictments. Not only for Donald Trump, but because they can do it to him, you too. You're going to jail soon.
And already have. Those are the same people that were convinced that Trump had a secret plan and it was going to be back in the White House like 4 times by now. Yeah, that's not reality either. Number 4. This indictment has weakened all the other potential ones.
Fake news. It's the exact 180 degrees opposite.
Yep.
This has emboldened all the other potential indictments.
See my last answer.
Because these aren't legal but political.
Correct.
Right? I mean, a legal analysis would say, so you're claiming that he took, classified documents and was showing, John Daly and his, Slurp Brothers these documents. That's a massive national security failure. But the legal hill you want to die on is, did he pay hush money to a porn star? That's a legal argument. Politically, these other prosecutors are saying, hey, if we're going to do this in New York, I've got a much better case. Guess what I'm going to try to? You've raised the bar of what the persecution I'm going to try to lay down now, right? Is that what you're saying?
It's what you said yesterday. The only thing that matters in America right now is raw political power. Mama says law is as law does. The only laws that matter are the ones that are enforced, regardless of whether they're real or made up. This has emboldened all of those other possible indictments.
Didn't you just say 5 minutes ago, Steve? They sure learned their lesson from Russiagate. Kavanaugh. Yeah. No, of course not.
And I didn't even get a chance to finish the loop on that poll that I was reading this morning, by the way. 60% of independents agreed that this was a political prosecution. 62% of independents approved of it, nevertheless.
Yes.
And I only am taking this poll seriously because I just lived through this election a few months ago. All kinds of people said, don't teabag my kids, it's a bad idea. Then went out and voted for the teabaggers. So here we are. Number 5. The Democrats are trying to make Trump the nominee.
Of course. True news.
See, I'm not...
Why?
I'm out of fake news, actually, on this one. Never underestimate the spirit of the age's willingness and ability to just unleash raw hatred. I think both things can be true. I think they want Donald Trump to be the nominee, and that this indictment is just pure hatred, pure unmitigated hate.
It's certainly both, but this is where, you know, any baseline reading of the math, and again, paying attention to the existence of Ron DeSantis. Of course, they would prefer Donald Trump over Ron DeSantis.
Finally, the Democrats are showing you how scared they are of Trump by their willingness to do anything to stop him.
This is, again, 180 degrees fake news. It's the exact opposite. They are not afraid of him. That's why they are willing to do anything to him.
They were terrified about him when he won. Absolutely, as were people on the right and on the left. And this is where, Steve, you've diagnosed when you said, you know, heck, we didn't know what to make out of him, but once you realized how much paper tiger was there, everybody realized how he could be manipulated, and he was. That's why you have Trump before COVID and Trump after COVID. Now, it takes some damn evil people to do what they did to this country in order to go after Trump, but they don't. They don't. They're scared of more of the precedent of what he could be. People like him could be going forward, but the man, the individual Donald Trump, no, they just need not to have more Donald Trumps, more people outside of the system who won't play the game.
24 hours from now. Final question. This one's off the board for each of you. 24 hours from now, what do you think we're going to learn that we don't know right now? Or confirm that we don't know right now once we start seeing when the actual court filings themselves are made public?
My gut is nothing. I do think that there is no depths to the corruption and sleaziness of this DA. So I do think that there is a possibility that there could be one added charge of trying to intimidate a jury or something like that. I don't know what the actual statute or law is in Brooklyn or Manhattan, I should say. So I think that's a possibility, but I'm not really sure we'll know anything.
Unless it's like Trump reading the names from Epstein Island when he does his little presser, it's not going to be anything.
By the way, Trump got 12% of the vote in Manhattan in 2020. 12. That's the jury pool they'll be selecting from right there. Hour 2 is next. All right, we're back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Don't forget, you can let us know what you think about what we think. You can email the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can also follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok, because the Chinese don't yet even know enough about me. So I want them to learn even more. All right, at Steve Deace Show. And it's DEACE. Those of you that listen to the podcast, thank you so very much. Please, if you have yet to do this, leave us a 5-star review. Now, if you don't like the show, don't lie. I'd never ask you to do that. But if you kind of like it, I would completely ask you to totally embellish, all right, and leave us a 5-star review. Thank you to all of you that have done that for us already. Hit subscribe or follow, whichever applies, on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks to each and every one of you. You're a big part of our audience here on the Steve Deace Show. Speaking of other shows here on Blaze TV, our colleague Jason Whitlock has a cool event coming up in Nashville. He is organizing the Fearless Army Roll Call event. He's concerned about the division in the country, and this is an all-day event in Nashville. It's going to encourage men to put on the full armor of God, take a stand against what is going on in the culture. At this conference, you're going to hear speeches from Jason, several other special guests, but you're running out of time to get your tickets. Join hundreds of like-minded men in Nashville on April 15th for this important conference. Tickets are selling out fast. Secure yours today by going to fearlessarmyrollcall.com to reserve your spot. That's fearlessarmyrollcall.com. Well, this is not something that a lot of guys in my line of work get an opportunity to do very often. Talk to the two guys that starred in the movie that he produced, but here they are. Sean Patrick Flanery is here with us, as well as Jordan Belfi, both of them together, of course. They are the main stars. They are the main event of Nefarious, which is hitting theaters nationwide on April the 14th. We have our red carpet premiere in Dallas tonight, and it's a pleasure to have both of them with us here in studio. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
So have you guys been together since we finished filming? Have you guys seen each other or anything at all since?
I haven't seen Jordan since we wrapped, and I'll tell you why. He'll tell you the story, but before we even started production, I think the first day we shook hands, the very next day we were in Oklahoma City preparing to shoot, his wife gave birth to his first son.
Right.
So, yes, he wasn't there for that process. I know it tore him up. We shot the film, and he bugged out to go and be a daddy.
Yeah.
So for the last year and some, he's been occupied.
So tell us about that experience, because people haven't seen the movie yet. So there's a unique challenge even in my wife giving birth to my first son while I'm in the middle of making a movie. But without spoiling anything, because we don't want to do that, some of the subject matter of this film makes that even more of an emotional burden to carry, obviously, that you had to. So, but you've had a chance to join what I think is the coolest fraternity in the world, being a dad. What's that been like for you?
I mean, where do you even start? I mean, it's the most special thing I've ever experienced. And to Sean's point, it was really special that as I was going through this, I was with him. I mean, because it's he and I for almost the entire film. He's a dad, and his support and his love was invaluable to me, because I couldn't be there. I was 2,000 miles away. But my son was born on day one of shooting this movie. So I went to bed the night before with my wife in labor and starting day one of this movie the next day. And I showed up at the penitentiary where we started shooting, and went through hair and makeup, was getting into wardrobe, was in my room, and I got the text that he had just been born. And so I was FaceTiming. He's 90 seconds old. He's on my wife's chest. Wow. And I'm trying not to weep because I'm in makeup.
Right.
And I'm having this moment where he's there, and he's my son, but he's an alien, but he's me. And
right.
It's out of body. It's an out of body experience. And then, Jordan, we're ready. And I had to hang up and walk to shoot the first shot on day one of the movie.
How did you do that?
How? I don't know. Weirdly, I felt calm about the whole thing. Weirdly, you just kind of do what you have to do, but I can't explain it. I just felt there was obviously something special about being here and being on this movie, and specifically being surrounded by the people that were making this movie. Couldn't have been more giving and loving, and I felt truly taken care of in that way. Not a lot of people knew. Eventually people knew. But I went to the first shot, and I went over, not even Chuck and Carrie knew at that moment. I went over to Chuck and Carrie, and I said, guys, I have to share something with you. And I think they thought that, we were just going to have a moment before we started the movie. But I went over and I said, guys, my first son was just born. They said, what are you talking about? I said, like 3 minutes ago. And they were gobsmacked. But I think it meant something that I was there and I wasn't going to go anywhere, and I had committed to being present to doing this with them. And then I would meet him, in a few weeks after. So I felt supported, and I felt, Carrie and Chuck had these two pastors on the movie, Gabriel and Lorraine, who were there every morning, and they were incredibly supportive, and I just felt taken care of by them in that way as well. So
that's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, in this line of work, I have to practice an inordinate amount of compartmentalization. Because I'm also a husband and a dad, and I've got other things going on, and then when it goes live, we're live. Yeah, and there's not another take, so I have to, completely focus on what I'm doing right here. But I couldn't even imagine. I knew that, because I remember speaking to you about it at the time, that your son had been born. Yeah. But I didn't know it happened the very first day of filming. That I did not know.
Can I tell you one other quick story about it? That whatever you believe, I had some moments where I got to Oklahoma and I was struggling because I thought, it was a city I'd never been to and a hotel I didn't choose. And I got to this hotel And I was there, and again, my wife is 9.5 months pregnant, or whatever the technical length is. It's 10 months, right? Yeah. It's actually 10 months. But
it's 9. It's 9.
Fair.
Yes.
So I get to the hotel, and I am there, and I'm alone. And I remember having this moment where I thought, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Right.
And I thought, I'm just going to go for a walk. I walked out of the hotel. I turned right. I walked a block. And by the way, we had already named my son, whose name is Rocky.
It's a great name. Yeah.
I walked a block and I looked up, literal sign that said Rocky.
Really?
A sign, a physical sign.
Nice.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And then I go to set, and our stunt coordinator on the movie, this guy Mark, Stallone's stunt double for 20 years.
Yeah.
Did all the Rocky movies. And I thought to myself, okay, it's okay.
There's an alignment there.
There's something here. I felt a certain level of peace, that I was where I should be.
So Sean, I've been dying to tell you this for nearly 2 years. When I always envisioned Nefarious as kind of your classic English accented diabolical genius. And I remember going down to see the filming and watching your performance in real time for the first time. And it completely blew my mind because it was, and I mentioned this to Carrie and Chuck. They told me a story that they actually mentioned something to you about, well, we kind of envisioned this. And you're like, okay. And then went out and did what you thought it should be anyway. Okay. And they thought it was great, so they just didn't say anything else. I never envisioned going in that the portrayal would look the way and present it the way that you have. On my now, I think it's my 23rd viewing of this film, having screened it numerous times around the country and in front of groups and influencers. I can't imagine it being done any other way. I mean, it's a truly incredible, mesmerizing performance, and I have often compared it to like Nicholson in The Shining kind of stuff.
Well, I really appreciate it. And first of all, it took me a while to get rid of the accent, because I was going to do it in my normal native, English. But then I thought, no, I'm going to do something quite different with this one. Me and Chuck and Carrie, we talked about all kind of stuff. I bounced a lot of ideas off them. And, on the first day, they said, why don't you do it the way that you suggested? And if we have any adjustments, we'll let you know. Mm-hmm. And then we wrapped, and
they had no adjustments.
No, but realistically, for me, everything starts in the writing, and they're two of the best writers I've ever had the honor to work with. Mm-hmm. I mean, I worked with them for the first time in 2004, and I think at the culmination of our filming, I said, guys, I had a wonderful time. I would do a Fruit Loops commercial with y'all.
Wow!
And they called me, a year and a half ago.
About a Fruit Loops commercial?
They did. They said, okay, Flanery, we got a Fruit Loops commercial. And I said,
post-production's taking longer than we thought. We've got mortgages, so we're doing a Fruit Loops commercial. Yeah.
I said, put me in, coach. They said, okay, no, seriously, we have a script, blah, blah, blah. They told me about it. I said, well, did you guys write it? They said, yeah. I said, if you guys wrote it, I'm in. They said, well, you read it first. And, so I read it that night. And I think my email back to them was, I'm in. When do we start? Mm-hmm. And it truly is. I mean, I'm sure Jordan can confirm, a large percentage of the stuff that we do, I'm sure he's no different. You change. You adjust a little way to fit your vernacular, your cadence of speech. I didn't change a syllable in their writing, and that's incredibly rare. So it really reduces the workload when something is that well written. So
that's true.
It's easy. It's easy. If it's written well, the workload is a fraction of what it would be otherwise.
The audience here is somewhat aware of the challenges of making this movie because I may have talked about this movie a couple times on the show the last few years.
Getting that sense.
Yes. Okay. And so they know how under the gun, how many challenges it was we faced, how under the gun we were. One thing I know they don't know, because I don't know either. How did the chemistry between the two of you? I mean, we didn't have months of rehearsals. We had hours. How did this chemistry develop? Because one of the things, when I knew we had something, in any form of marketing, when you hear the same things over and over again, that's either really good or really bad, right? If you hear the same bad things over and over again, that's not good. You hear the same good things over and over again, that's really good. Because everybody, regardless of what belief system they're coming to the movie with, or their backgrounds, or socioeconomic status, is having a lot of the same reactions from and one of the things you hear all the time is the repartee, the back and forth between the two of you, and the timing and the chemistry between the two of you. How did you nail that in such a short amount of time?
Well, I'll say that, during the casting, when they came to me, and obviously I'd worked with them before, and, I read the script. The next day I said, I'm in. And they said, well, what role do you want to play? And I said, are you kidding me? I want to play Nefarious. And they were like, thank God. That's what we were hoping. And then, the conversation went to, I said, I'm not concerned with almost anything else apart from who's going to sit on the other side of the table. And there was a couple of names that, to be quite honest, I didn't think would work very well. And I am incredibly grateful that it was that dude sitting on the other side of the table. Because the success or failure of each of our roles is crucial to who we're bouncing those words off of. And, they came to me and they said, we found this guy. And I mean, no joke, I did my research. I Googled every possible thing on him, and I thought that dude. And it was this cat right here. And I'm not kidding. I'm sure you can understand a role like that. It's crucial. And, we had a couple of days at rehearsal, but really it was more of us just chit-chatting. It was he and I just getting to know each other. And really talking about, hey, you want to run lines? By the way, my son was born 18 minutes ago. Oh my God. Park the movie. Right. Let's
not bury the lead here.
Let's talk about daddyhood. I got 2 sons. You want to know about them? Here's my pictures. Oh, here's, it just became this organic thing that, I don't know. Chemistry is not something that you can bottle. You can't design it. If there was a recipe, everybody'd create it. And it just kind of happened. I'm pretty passionate about my work. I know he is as well. And we both adored the script and embraced it on all fronts. And, whatever happened. Some people may feel like there's a good rapport back and forth. I'm sure other people will absolutely hate it. But I'm happy with the way it turned out. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that it was him on the other side of the table.
I'm guessing you feel the same way.
No, not so much.
It's unilateral.
Had to carry his carcass the entire way.
What a load to have to carry. No, but he's 100%. I couldn't be more grateful as well. And everything Sean said is dead on. It's difficult to manufacture. It's either there or it's not. And without, at the risk of sounding pretentious about it, I don't want to sound too precious, but so much. When you start a project like this, it's play-like in that way, and it depends. It's masterful dialogue. It's all in that interplay, and so much of your performance depends on what you're getting from the other actor. You can't generate it all from you. It has to be that interplay. It has to be what you're listening to, and what that draws out of you, what that stimulates in you, and so you have to have someone working at a similar level. And I think both of us, I haven't been around as long as Sean, but both of us have been around long enough that we can size that up in the other actor pretty quickly, and whether it's there or not. And I certainly knew instantly that we were going to have something.
First time I read the script, what surprised me the most is it was the first time I realized, Jordan, how important the role that you would eventually be cast in was going to be. I mean, when we storyboarded the movie and figuring out how to translate the book into a movie and everything else, there's so much focus because the movie's going to be called Nefarious or some derivative of that, which means that needs to be really good. I mean, if that part of the movie is not good, it doesn't matter how good the rest of it is, the whole thing falls. And so I had so much focus in my mind about how important that role was going to be and how it was going to be portrayed. And then the first time I read the script, though, it really dawned on me, wow, we're going to need a really good actor to play this part as well, because you are the conduit.
That's what I was just
for the average American, what they think or their their own moral, philosophical, spiritual biases and stuff going into an interaction like this. The path your character takes is a very common arc that goes on in the hearts and minds of a lot of what's going on in our country right now. And it dawned on me for the first time, wow, this guy's going to have to be a really good actor too.
Well, thank you for saying that. But you're right. I mean, not just, it's the audience is in his shoes for all intents and purposes. You only really know as much as he knows for most of the movie. And his journey, regardless of your belief system coming into the movie, his journey is the one you're following in terms of where he starts and where he ends. And so, you know, the audience has to be with him, or at least understand what he's experiencing. And hopefully, you know, I bring it to life in a way that the audience can align with. Because
there is there's a mixture of discipling and rivalry in your Nefarious's relationship with James throughout the course of the movie. And so you're inhabiting those characters, and we're guys. We're all competitive naturally. And much of this film is the stare down, the face down between the two of you one-on-one. Does it get competitive when you're filming? I mean, you're like, oh, man, he was really good that scene. I got to be better this next scene, or I got to really bring it. Does it get into that at all? Do you guys get competitive at all?
You know, I've certainly worked with people that feel like it's a competition, but really it's a dance. If your partner is not stepping correctly, it makes you look bad. There is no, I've certainly worked with those people that want to upstage, and they want, but it doesn't work like that. It's catastrophic for the film. And my loyalty is to the end product. It's not to making myself shine. It's really about the story. What's the best way to present this story? And so I've never felt that way working at all, but I've certainly come across people that I realize do. And I'm sure Jordan has as well. He's been in the business a long time. But it's a dance. And it is a reciprocal current of energy that, unless you're a rubber ball and you can bounce it back accurately, you know, the lines of dialogue, you read the script and you're like, okay, on this line, I'm supposed to feel X or Y. If the person's giving you X or Y, then it's the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
If they're not, then yes, like he said earlier, you have to internalize, you have to manufacture this artificial response that even the audience is going to go, well, why are you responding that way? Because even the audience doesn't feel like it was delivered with that kind of intent. And never once did I feel like it was done inaccurately. It was easy.
And the thing is that part of the joy, part of the electricity, part of the thing that you're responding to comes from surprise. The other actor will do something you didn't expect, and that elicits something from you that even surprises you.
It's organic and not contrived.
It's organic, but you can't anticipate some of that stuff. You have to both. It's a funny thing as a performer. You have to both completely know everything that's going on and what you plan to do, but also be nimble enough and open enough to throw it all away and be present in the moment to what's actually going to happen. Because you don't know, you shouldn't know what the other actor is going to do, because it's all sort of a recreation or simulation of it happening for the first time. Without spoiling it for anybody listening right now, you had to learn that lesson at the end of filming, working with Glenn Beck. I remember being here. That's true. We won't give anything away, but we radio guys get nervous if we keep saying the same thing over and over again. And so you guys like, there's a script, we got a plan, follow the plan. That was interesting. But when we watch the final product again, I mean, the interaction between you and Glenn at the, in that part of the movie, I mean, people that weren't here to watch that camaraderie get built in real time would have no clue at all about how, what it took to establish that, because the way that it comes off. When you each saw the completed movie for the first time, I know we are in an era with green screens and special effects, and a lot of times actors and big budget productions really have no clue what the movie is going to look like, if it's any good, until 2 years of post-production is done. Okay, we didn't quite have all of that, but we did have like a year of post-production and a difficult editing process and a lot of challenges to get to the finished product. When you got to the finished product, did you have any idea at all that it was going to turn out the way that it did?
I actually did. I thought it was just like the script. Being in this business for a while, it's you can pretty accurately surmise what the end result would be just by looking at all the unique pieces. And I was there on the day that we were putting it together. I know that the editing, you can drastically change something, but I know Chuck and Carrie. I know their sensibilities, and I watched the final product. I was incredibly pleased with it. I actually adore the film. I adore every aspect of it, but I wasn't blown away that it was better. I didn't think it was worse. I thought, yep, that's what we shot.
What about you, Jordan?
No, I feel generally the same. I was impressed with some of the post stuff that came together, that like, particularly the sound, when, I know what we did, and I knew the soul of what we did was there. And then it was just a matter of putting that together in a way that was going to, I think, do service to what we brought to it and service to their own writing. And I felt the same way. I was really happy with it.
What's the reaction you guys want? Tonight we will have a large crowd. I did a sneak peek at our church back home in Iowa. Last week we had over 400 people. That's pretty close to the crowd we're going to have tonight.
Okay.
This may be one of the largest crowds in one sitting that ever sees the movie. Because a lot of theaters nowadays, they put the recliners and stuff in. They seat like half of what they used to. So what is the reaction that you guys want the most from who comes to this event tonight and sees Nefarious for the first time?
Well, for me, first and foremost, I'd like people to enjoy it. I'd like for people to get lost in it and wake up when the credits roll. But I'd like for the film to be significant. Most of my favorite films are significant. They move me so much that I keep on going. The car ride. So me and my wife, before we had kids, one of our favorite things was to go and watch a movie and talk about it. Some films we'd see didn't warrant talking about it more than 3 minutes, and then we're like, okay, let's go get ice cream. The films that we loved, whether they're whatever the plot is, it's something that forces us to recalibrate, course correct. It forces us to go, oh my God, that perspective, it's new, it's interesting. And we talk and debate about it, and what were they thinking when they made this choice or that choice? At my core, I hope it moves people. I hope it makes people introspective. I hope it makes, as with any film, not just specific to this film, every time you do a story, you want that story to affect people. And this is no different. And I will say, after seeing it, and being in this business for 30 years, I'm incredibly proud of this film. Incredibly. I think it's probably the most important film I've ever done.
Wow.
Period. And I say that in all honesty. So whether 2 people love it or 2 million people love it, I'm still proud of it.
That's powerful.
It's a real movie. It's a real movie. And by that I mean nothing against, the current crop of all the CG stuff that you just listed. That has its place, but it's a real movie with real characters and real scenes. And it's about something. It's really about something. It's got a soul. And I think the movies that I've been obsessed with, as Sean just said, since I was a kid, I always revisit, but always capture my imagination. They stick with me. The movies that I can't shake. And there's something about Nefarious that I think it's almost ineffable. There's something about it that burrows in and stirs you or makes you think or makes you question how you're approaching things or what your thoughts. There's something about it that burrows inside your heart and in your mind. And I think that it's a difficult thing to describe, but there's something special about it. But beyond that, it's a real movie that takes you on a journey and ultimately will move you with real characters and real scenes. And so I feel like there's a dearth of that, and I've wanted that personally.
We've got a couple of minutes left. First of all, let me say this, in case we run out of time later and I don't get a chance to say it with the audience being able to hear. This is pretty damn cool that I'm getting to do this with you guys. I just want to say that. All right. So I'm trying to keep my composure and stuff here. In my line of work, I've worked for presidential candidates. I've known presidents and powerful people. Not impressed. All right. I'm fighting every urge to fanboy here. I just want everybody to know that this is me being professional. Okay. But the greatest compliment that I can give Carrie and Chuck is that they took my material and they elevated it. I mean, they took what I wrote and made it better. And the greatest compliment that I can give you guys is you took their material and you elevated it. I mean, you took their material and you made it better. I mean, we don't go to the theater to watch words on a page. We go to see those words come to life. And I mean, what you guys did and the power of your performances. I mean, it's if the script is the DNA of this film. I mean, you guys are its corporal form. I mean, you brought it to life. And I mean, your performances are extraordinary. And I mean, I can't get enough of watching it. I can't get enough every opportunity I have to jump on a plane and show this to a group of people and just sit and watch them react to it for the first time, even though I know everything that is coming by now and can sit and mouth the words, okay? But I can't get enough of watching a crowd react, because this movie is not what everybody thinks it is. And watching how it subverts their expectations and causes them to, think deeply. How many times I've heard guys, I got to watch this movie again. I know I missed stuff. I want to watch it over and over again. I mean, what was that? What was this? And I mean, it's messing with my head. It's making me contemplate things. I'm a fanboy. I took all my kids to the Marvel movies and all that kind of stuff, but those films don't do that. And this one does. And you guys are a big reason why. So thank you, both of you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Let me throw this right back at you. Films like this or roles like this are why you get in the business, right? But as far as a fanboy, the inverse is true as well. I'll tell you, there's a buddy of mine, Adam Archuleta, ex-NFL player.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Archuleta.
I know the name, yeah.
He sent me a text, and he goes, bro, I just heard Steve Deace mention you. I was elevated tenfold because my name left your lips. I couldn't shut him up. He's like, so you're doing the book? I mean, he had already read your book and whatnot. And I was like, yeah, Steve Deace was talking about, it just kind of made me
like, who the hell's Steve Deace? But I'm going to play along with this.
No, I knew exactly who you were.
No, that's really cool. I mean, he's got a Super Bowl ring, right? With the Rams?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's a stud, and I got a text because he heard you talking about me playing a part in your book.
Well, that is very cool.
Well, this doesn't exist without your book, and these kinds of roles, this kind of stuff doesn't come around every day. And so I think I speak for Sean too, that this stuff, we're really grateful because the opportunity to bring that stuff to life not only is the job, but it's the kind of stuff you dream about as an actor.
Amen. You guys hit the cue. You don't even have headphones on. The music's in my ear. We got to go. You nailed that, man. Not even knowing.
You're welcome.
You don't even need a director. All right, guys, thank you. We'll see you tonight. God bless you, all right?
God bless.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll come back, and we'll wrap things up and get Todd and Aaron's perspective here in a moment. Stay tuned. Well, Americans have had it. Whether now it's Bud Light is into the anti-Christical, demonic tranny madness, other companies signing up for it. People are looking for a parallel economy, looking for, is there some place I can go to get the products and the services I want where I can give money to people who just don't hate me? Unfortunately, not everywhere is that an option. One place, fortunately, though, it is with your mobile phone, a product that we all need and use nowadays in modern America. And our friends over at Patriot Mobile, they are the leaders in that. And you guys have made them the leaders in that. That's why they can expand their services that they now can offer you. For example, right now, for the first time, you can get access to all three major carriers. That'll teach me to take the Marco Rubio drink of water right before we come back. You can get access to all three major networks right now from all the major carriers for free. You can make the switch anytime you want for free to get their coverage guarantee that they offer only at Patriot Mobile, just part of the outstanding service that they provide you, and as well as the peace of mind of knowing I no longer have to give money directly to people who hate me. Go to patriotmobile.com/Steve right now, and when you use the offer code Steve, you'll get a free activation to make the switch today. Free activation with the offer code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve, or you can call them at 878-PATRIOT. So let's bring Todd and Aaron into the conversation. Gentlemen, you guys got a chance to both watch and hear my discussion with Sean Patrick Flanery and Jordan Belfi, the stars of Nefarious, hitting theaters April 14th. We started filming the movie in November. You can get tickets now at NefariousTickets.com. That's NefariousTickets.com. Pre-sales are available. We're doing the red carpet premiere in Dallas here tonight. But as you guys were watching and listening, what stood out to you about that conversation?
Man, well, the experience most of the people who just saw that are going to have is that they haven't seen the movie. It was so much fun to just, my greatest pleasure of that is what I told you, watching you three interact, especially for you to get to this day. As a fanboy though, man, I am going to need the box set edition where we have the interviews after everybody's seen the movie so they can go all in on all the details and what they were thinking and feeling on particular scenes, because there's so much there. They're telling you that by telling you how important it's a real movie. The level of dialogue back and forth, the importance of being able to react organically to one another. And there just must be stories of like holy crap moments when that scene happened and you said this and you reacted that way. I just think it's just having seen the movie several times, what you just experienced, folks, is just the tip of the iceberg. These guys, I hope one day will be willing to sit down at length for a couple hours and tell you about all of it, because there's so much heft, there's so much weight, there's so much depth to just about every line in this movie.
Totally agree with that assessment. I mean, there are several things. First of all, this is one of the funnest half hours, I think, ever, maybe on this show. One of the funnest half hours, I think, at least in recent memory that I can think of. Jordan Belfi, I know you had mentioned a couple of times that he had his son. Like you, I had not heard the fullness of that story. And it's funny because I've been looking forward to this interview for the last week and a half or two since I knew it was going to happen. And driving into the studio this morning, I was looking forward to it as well, and just thinking over the numerous things that you've told Todd and I, the audience, about the battle that it has been to make this movie. And there have been several skirmishes in the overall battle of bringing this movie to Nineveh, or just bringing it to market here in the collapsing West. And several of those battles took place during the actual production. You know, some of them took place during pre-production, a lot of them post-production as well. But there was definitely a skirmish going on, a spiritual skirmish. I don't want to underwhelm or understate what was going on, but a skirmish in the overall battle during the production of this movie, whether it was the union issues, other things that you have talked about, you and Chuck and Carrie have talked about, just random stuff happening that just doesn't happen on movies. And then hearing Jordan's story that he was FaceTiming with his 92-year-old son when he gets a knock at the door to go out and film and shoot. Yeah, I don't know what the timeline was as well, but you've also said these guys would just rip off how many dozens of pages of dialogue when they were shooting together amidst the backdrop of the spiritual warfare that was going on. Jordan's personal, just amazing story there with his son being born as well. It's clear who has been the victor of these skirmishes to this point. It's clear. Now, this movie still has to get into theaters, and it is, and people will go and see it. So there's still another skirmish or two or three or four to come, I'm sure. But praise the Lord. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising to us that the only undefeated being in the history of the universe came out on top in all of these skirmishes. But hearing that conversation, especially the way that it began, with the story of Jordan Belfi's son being born, really underscored and emphasized to me just who has come out on top thus far.
And I want to make sure I say one more thing. They came across as real guys, right? Steve can elaborate on that part. I mean, I thought there was a real a gentleness to Jordan. I think a humility to Sean about no, I was like just stressing. I'd do anything for the writers of this movie, giving the credit elsewhere. But I don't. This dovetails on what we do on this show all the time. Who men need to be, the importance of standing opposed and getting uncomfortable. Yeah, they are real guys. They didn't come out and shove their Oscars in your face or whatever awards they've had, or give you any sense of arrogance. But what they did in terms of saying, "Here I am, Lord, send me," and making this movie. And again, once you see it, you'll say they did not just sign up to make a movie. They did take a stand. That at the very least, whatever you believe, you need to hear this. This is that important, and you don't hear it most other places. The question remains, after you see, why aren't you doing that in your own life? You're never going to make a movie. But why aren't you standing your post? I think that's what you really need to get across from these guys, because they're just people. We're all just people. It's just a matter of which calls we answer, which ones we ignore, and whom ultimately we serve. I've never spoken to these people one day of my life, and I don't know that I ever will be. But what they did to say yes to this movie is something that you need to ask of yourself in your own life.
Listening to them, I think the part that I think I'm probably the proudest of, although I ain't gonna lie, hearing Sean say his Super Bowl winning buddy was impressed that he was going to be in a movie that Steve Deace produced. I thought that was kind of cool. And you guys know from working with me, there's very few times I'm like, that's kind of cool. I just, this is just what I do. I'm not, I don't take a lot of pictures with people, and I'm just not normally part of that. It's just what I'm called to do. It's my job, and it's a cool job, but it's a job nevertheless. But we've had a lot of conversations on this show over the years about the state of the church. And can we love our neighbor as we love ourselves while still loving God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? Or is it a false choice that we have to forego truth to show God's loving kindness, or we have to forego God's loving kindness to stand for his truth? Can we do both simultaneously? And I think the thing that I'm the most proud of is being a part of a production where both of them, or each of them, said they were impacted by those dueling, in this case, D-U-A-L. We've often put them D-U-E-L in the American church. We put them at odds. I think I mentioned last summer I had a chance to go down and preach for a weekend at a Calvary Chapel Church in Chattanooga, and I was just greatly impressed and taken aback. I mean, they've got every outreach bell and whistle known to man. They've done everything that the church growth movement has said to do, except for one thing. They haven't watered down truth at all. That's why they invite somebody like me to come and preach. They didn't buy into the false choice. They thought, we have a literal chef restaurant where with fresh ingredients, everything's made fresh, and its food there is really good, by the way. We got a chef restaurant in-house. It's open even when the church isn't. Can't have more outreach better than that. And yet, fire comes from that pulpit. They just don't think it's an either or. It's an and also. And to hear Jordan say on one hand just how much grace and kindness and support he felt making this film, and the conflicting emotions of wanting to be at home but really believing in the film at the same time, and then to hear Sean say, I mean, I hope this impacts people. It's the most important film I've ever been a part of. I think that's the part of that conversation that I thought was the most powerful, even though they occurred at completely different intervals in the conversation, one at the beginning and one at the end. And I think if our film, if it is successful, and on some levels it already is, even to get to this point, frankly, but if it becomes successful, I think what will be honored is that, and I think that frankly starts with Carrie and Chuck. This is their production. They set the mood. I think the idea that we are capable of doing both of these things. We are capable of putting our arms around you, and we're also capable of, proverbially speaking, of course, slapping you around a little bit when you need it. You got it coming because you're being dumb and you're contemplating doing some really stupid and dangerous crap that, will hurt you and other people, and we want to stop you from doing that and get your attention. In many respects, these are the characteristics of a good father.
Yes.
The one I least wanted, the one I'm the most afraid to disappoint, and then the one that I will call first when I'm in the most trouble at the same time. Previous generations of Americans knew this as dad. That sort of masculine characteristic that I will protect and defend at the same time. That's largely what is missing. And of course, a lot of our belief and projection of whom we think God is originally comes from what we think of our fathers or lack thereof. And I just think I think of everything that I've heard and seen in this movie and watched take place, to hear our two titular actors, to hear them say, in Jordan's case, it was really the grace that this production showed me while we were making. And hear Sean say, it's really the truth of what this movie was advocating that made me so proud of it. And we did it so well. And, the Apostle John says, the law came through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And I think that's the false choice that as a church we have put ourselves in this generation. That we have to forego and forsake truth to show people grace. And I think as a result, we have, as a church, contributed to the downfall of this civilization. But the good news is, if we're contributors to its downfall, then we can also be contributors to its reawakening. And that is by no longer divorcing grace and truth anymore. They should be reunited, remarried, rededicated to themselves. They complement each other. They go together. And so I think to hear both of them say that aspect of this production is what impacted them the most, I think I'm going to take more pride in that probably than anything else, guys.
Yeah, and that's why I think this movie at the end of the day is, for years after The Passion of the Christ came out, you saw churches hosting viewing events during Easter. That's a very high bar, but I honestly think that this movie, the only movie that Nefarious will ever perhaps take second to is that movie in terms of that. After this movie's out, it's had its initial run. Other than little kids' movies that you put them in front of, churches are going to be bringing people together to sit down and watch us together and discuss it together, because it is fundamental to their mission as much as any movie can be, short of the one that actually depicts the Passion.
Absolutely. And I'm not really sure. Kind of along the lines of what you said, Steve, these two men playing this role. I read the script as well before production. You allowed me to do so. I would echo what Sean said. It's just impeccably written. It doesn't just invoke words in your mind. It paints a picture, which is rare for a screenplay to do. It does that very, very well. But I could have never imagined anything else other than these two guys playing these two roles. It fits like a glove. Fits exactly like a glove. And I don't really know how much better. I mean, you worked like it was up to you. You prayed like it was up to God. And so did Chuck and Carrie, who we'll be hearing from tomorrow. The results are up to him now. They really are. I think everybody, to the best of their abilities, did their roles. And it's just from the outside looking in, it's been an incredibly fun to watch.
I don't think I've even told you guys this yet, but one of the people that's here with us this week for the premiere is Pastor Jason Noble. And for those of you that maybe are interested, remember that name. You guys remember the film Breakthrough a couple years ago about the kid who fell through the ice, was clinically dead, and came back to life? Remember that movie?
Yeah.
That's his church. That happened with his church. And, I mean, he came on board to help us reach the church with this movie because he was so impacted by it and thought it was so powerful. So got the chance to sit down and talk with him some this morning as well. That was very cool. This whole day has been very cool. Tonight, hopefully, it's going to be even cooler. We're back at it again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Thank you for tolerating us another day. John 3:17.